Every year, it's the same deal. We get horror movies full of fantastic performances, choreography, and direction. But do mainstream awards recognize them?
Wow!
Sure, you have your occasional breakthrough, but where's the respect? Where is the love for the films that keep proving themselves commercially and critically?
Yeah, justice for mutant mayhem!
That's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll go.
I am, of course, talking about horror. The films that make us scream, make us squirm, make us hold onto our loved ones' arms for dear life and give form to all the little monsters that live inside our heads. It's time to give voice to these unsung masterpieces and the talented people who bring them to life. And I should know a thing or two about giving a voice to horror.
Bye, Billy.
Enjoy the 2024 Dead Meat Horror Awards.
It's time to honor the best in horror from 2023 with the 3rd annual Dead Meat Horror Awards, sponsored by Incogni. So rev up those chainsaws of cheers for your horrific hosts, James H. Anise and Chelsea Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another year of the Dead Meat Horror Awards.
This year, we're filming the show at Vidiots, a historic nonprofit video store and film theater in Eagle Rock, Los Angeles. It's a company that truly appreciates film, which is what we're all about today.
You know, I'll be honest, I was worried that the genre might have peaked in 2022, but this past year showed us that we are truly living in a golden age of horror.
It seemed to continue a trend of there not being a dominant trend in the genre right now. We're really getting a huge variety of offerings, especially from countries outside the US.
Yeah, we had sequels and adaptations. Some franchises were brought back from the dead. There were big action-y movies, some that felt homemade, and one that hardly included any dialogue at all.
As always, though, the mainstream film awards didn't bother to acknowledge too much of the genre, besides Godzilla being nominated for visual effects, because obviously.
Yeah, can't really ignore that one.
Yeah.
And so, once again, we here at Dead Meat are following in the footsteps of Fangorious Chainsaw Awards and the Saturns, amongst many other fine genre awards, in acknowledging and celebrating the best in horror. We've got 11 prime rib trophies cooked up and ready to go to the best films and filmmakers across various categories.
And this year, for the first time, we've put together a panel to determine the winners, so it's no longer just the two of us picking our favorites.
Yes, while Chelsea and I still had the unfortunate task of narrowing each category down to just 6 nominees, we are but 2 of 13 panelists who cast our votes for the winners. We picked the panelists from the world of film critics, but ones that love and know the horror genre. We'll be happy to introduce you to them a little later on, but right now, I'd love to get this show on the road.
Hi, I'm glad to see the Dead Meat Horror Awards return to celebrate the genre. Not just the films nominated tonight, but all the horror movies that came out in 2023. Making a movie, no matter the budget or subject, is a difficult, if not almost impossible task. So all these horror movies that came out this year are a miracle in their own way and added to the horror ecosystem. Once again, we begin with the prime ribs, with a montage highlighting the most notable horror releases of the year. Enjoy.
What is your deal, Mike? What are you, some kind of head case?
Is it not too frightening for the children?
Scary stories make life less scary.
This isn't you. This isn't who I remember.
Open up and let us in, Cassie.
You don't look so good, Mom.
We have to finish the movie.
Who gives a fuck about movies?
$50 says this is gonna end badly.
I'll take that action.
I've been worried about being murdered since I was 16. You thought I wouldn't be prepared?
The blackening?
What is this? This game got bad vibes.
No, thank you.
Sometimes you have to make tough decisions to protect your family.
I sense a great evil. You don't know who you're dealing with.
No. Really?
It is only by confronting the devil that his grip on us is weakened.
What is this supposed to be? It's the thing that comes for your kids when you're not paying attention.
The 4 of us are here to prevent the apocalypse.
is all very fascinating, honey, but I am not hearing a plan.
Prepare to have your mind blown.
This is the part where you run.
Oh my god, we're gonna die! Pull yourself together!
What the? We cannot hide from our ghosts, whether they are real or not. We have a job to do.
You are finished.
There's certain decisions that are bad decisions.
We should split up.
I let you in.
What have you done?
I never get sick of those things. Every year I watch the montage over and over and over again. Thank you as always to Mike Seigan for putting it together. As far as I'm concerned, he's the best trailer editor in town.
Our first award celebrates the performers and crew members who bring truth to fiction. Horror movies often see their characters in dangerous situations, especially when a lot of action is added to the mix as well.
Of course, the first goal of any film set should be to keep everyone safe. Stunt coordinators and choreographers, and the stunt teams they work with, ensure that we get on-screen mayhem without any real-life tragedy.
To present the award for Best Stunts or Choreography, we have an actor who insisted on doing most of his own stunts, even when he was acting in his first film. From 2022's Prey, actor Dakota Beavers.
Thanks, James and Chelsea. In Prey, I had the pleasure of performing my own stunts, but I was always kept safe on set because you can't act your way out of an injury. Without skilled stunt performers, choreographers, and technicians, we'd all be out of commission. Thankfully, they were there for the actors in this year's nominees, who had to fall, fly, dance, and die, sometimes more than once. The nominees for Best Stunts or Choreography are Evil Dead Rise.
The latest story in the Evil Dead universe features inhuman acrobatics, demonic levitations, and otherworldly torture, all to be expected when Deadites get involved. Stunt coordinator Stuart Thorpe was kept busy lifting, pulling, and dropping actors from wires on countless occasions. Alyssa Sutherland threw herself completely into the performance, not minding when she got banged up and bruised.
I had a good egg on my forehead because I banged my head on the camera.
The biggest challenge may have come in the film's climax, when actresses Lily Sullivan and the then 9-year-old Nell Fisher spilled out of an elevator alongside 6,000 liters of fake blood.
Megan.
When animatronics couldn't suffice, Megan the killer android was played by Australian actress and champion dancer Amy Donald. She worked with movement coaches Jed Brophy and Luke Hawker to develop the robot's physicality.
She could run on all fours really quickly. She could rise like a cobra without using her hands.
Her longtime dance teacher, Kylie Norris, developed the character's dance, which included a standing backflip that led to viral fame before the movie was even released. Stunt coordinator Isaac Hammond kept everyone safe, practicing fight scenes with cardboard box replicas and pool noodles, and using wires with stunt performers as needed.
Go! That was not supposed to happen.
Meg 2, The Trench.
Overseeing Meg 2's blockbuster action was no small task for stunt coordinator Mark Maley, who was challenged by a script that featured constant escalating action and various fight scenes.
There's a line in the script that says, wild stunts and action that has never been seen before. Yeah, thanks, writers.
A large portion of the movie takes place underwater, requiring actors to work closely alongside diving coordinator Dave Shaw. Jason Statham once again did many of his own stunts, including a spinning jet ski jump that was accomplished with a giant rotating mechanical arm, and a chase along a dock that utilized 6 exploding water tanks.
Renfield.
This direct sequel to the Universal classic Dracula mixes horror, comedy, and a whole lot of action. The cast, most of whom had limited stunt experience, spent months rehearsing and being trained in fighting, parkour, and wire work. Stunt coordinator Christopher Brewster guided them through the blood-soaked kills, gravity-defying action and fire stunts.
It is like every element of the stunt world all comprised into this movie, and it's really exciting when you get actors that want to put that effort in.
A memorable scene in an apartment complex saw Nicholas Hoult use severed arm prosthetics as weapons, as well as use a wire harness to jump 3 stories in the middle of a bloody kill.
Scream 6.
Directors Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette set out to make Scream 6 a grittier, more action-focused movie, reflecting the franchise's shift to the urban setting of New York City. Stunt coordinator Alexandre Cadeau oversaw the film's brutal fight scenes and suspenseful chase sequences, which saw the characters chased around in bodegas, fancy apartments, and derelict theaters.
We keep joking that this is a secret action movie.
Maybe not.
It's a secret
maybe
movie.
Maybe not so secret action.
It's a not so secret action movie.
The memorable ladder sequence was partially filmed on set using the actual actors, but wide shots were filmed with stunt performers bridging a 5th-story gap between real apartment buildings.
And Sick.
Stunt coordinator Eliza Coleman made the most of Sick's modest budget, choreographing several visceral moments in the brutal fight for survival that spans most of the movie's runtime.
The beginning of this was, how can we do an entire movie that's really just one long chase scene?
During the film's finale, a 17-second-long fire stunt saw Coleman's daughter, professional stunt performer Whitney Coleman, double for actress Jane Addams. Meanwhile, stuntman Chris Reed played the mass killer throughout most of the film and took a gnarly fall down steep, narrow stairs.
And the prime rib for best stunts or choreography goes to Renfield. Congratulations to Renfield for taking first place in the most high-flying award of the night. Back to you guys.
Congratulations to Renfield. In a movie with a lot of humor and gore and a Nick Cage performance, it's impressive how much the action and stunts stood out. Well deserved.
Most of us are content with using the latest technology for banal purposes. Watching TikTok videos, scrolling through Reddit, playing gacha games, stuff like that. But some geniuses are able to utilize computers for a much higher calling, making monsters that terrify us or creating kills that make us go, wow.
As much as we love a good squib or prosthetic, digital effects are a necessary part of modern filmmaking, and an art form unto themselves. To present the award for Best Digital Effects, we have an actress who was the leading part in one of the biggest horror franchises of all time. She's been acting since she was a kid, and she also runs a podcast and performed in the Texas Chainsaw video game. It's Scout Taylor Compton.
Thank you, James and Chelsea. Although to some horror fans, digital is a dirty word. Be dishonest not to recognize the ways computer artistry can make the unbelievable believable. Digital effects can enhance their practical cousins, keep cast and crew out of harm's way, and realize the outer limits of our imagination. This year's nominees excelled all of the above. The nominees for Best Digital Effects are Godzilla -1,
Takashi Yamazaki pulled triple duty as writer, director, and visual effects supervisor for Godzilla -1, which sees the kaiju attack an already battered post-war Japan. This allowed Yamazaki to consider the VFX requirements while writing the script and have more frequent VFX checks in post, since he was already there in person giving notes as director. Of course, there were still challenges for the team of 35 effects artists, especially when it came to the water, which took up 500 terabytes of data and required so much processing that production kept nearly running out of hardware.
It was this cat and mouse chase of, locking down VFX, but we needed more machines, more power, more everything.
In the end, the team was able to create the effects for Godzilla in only 8 months, with few late nights and no weekend work, according to the director.
The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
For this seafaring take on the classic Dracula tale, director Andre Uverdahl reteamed with MPC VFX, whom he previously worked with on Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, to enhance the practical makeup on actor Javier Botet and create the leathery bat wings that allowed his Dracula to take flight. The German effects company Rise created the port city of Varna by extending buildings and adding hundreds of digital extras. They also created the stormy seas, transforming a water tank in Malta into the unforgiving waters that wreak havoc nearly as much as the stowaway vampire. Though production used a practical ship set, they also had to digitally render the Demeter when it was at sea.
Most of the shots where the ship is out in open water
are 100% digitally created. There's even little digital people walking around on the deck.
The film features 3 characters catching fire, none of which was done practically. All the fire scene was created with visual effects.
Megan.
Though producer James Wan is an avid fan of practical effects, there were times when Megan the android needed digital artistry to come to life, like when she stripped to her metal core in the film's finale. Finn Design and Effects provided the work and helped make the scenes with Megan, played by Amy Donald, match the ones where they used an animatronic.
She never wore an animatronic mask. Her face was digitally replaced with a digital version of the puppet's face.
For the film's climactic fight between robots, Finn created full CG doubles of both Megan and Bruce, allowing the digital bots to go all out without damaging the practical puppets.
Meg 2, The Trench.
Meg 2's collection of creatures is as massive in number as it is scale, featuring not only 3 different megalodons, but a T-Rex, a giant octopus, and a swarm of prehistoric predators known as snappers, who were played on set by stand-ins dressed in chroma blue suits. Director Ben Wheatley got ahead of the work by storyboarding for 2.5 years and making an animated pre-visualization. This helped the returning Scanline VFX and DNEG, who not only designed the monsters, but also animated them to move convincingly in water and on dry land.
That was a really good kind of challenge for me as a supervisor to try to attain good action sequences, but maintain scale.
No One Will Save You.
It's not easy to make an extraterrestrial home invasion film on a budget of just $22.8 million. So writer-director Brian Duffield carefully planned out how much the aliens would be seen.
We definitely were the kind of movie that we knew every shot that had an alien in it way before we were shooting because they cost money.
This was made all the more challenging by the importance placed on the aliens' physicality. Since the movie doesn't feature any spoken language, the invaders must communicate through expressions, head movements, and hand gestures. All elements that needed to be designed and executed by effects house DNEG. They tailored everything from the large movements down to the small details, such as ripples around their necks and temples. They used motion capture actors to inspire their animators and developed unique characteristics for each alien, making them feel like individuals from another species, rather than interchangeable extraterrestrials.
The Pope's Exorcist.
The Pope's Exorcist uses VFX to bring its demonic visions to life, for everything from burning eyes to dropping jaws. Multiple VFX companies contributed their talents, including Cutting Edge, Frame by Frame, and Metafix. Alt VFX provided a swarm of birds and an exploding lady, Slate VFX worked with facial extensions and digital blood, and Why Worry Productions helped augment facial distortions.
As a producer, I always kind of responded to high concepts and big characters. This has both in spades.
The film's climactic exorcism contains a host of otherworldly visuals, including an explosive, bloody end to the demon Asmodeus.
And the prime rib for best digital effects goes to Godzilla, -1. Congratulations to the crew for making a 70-year-old monster scarier than ever.
Congratulations to the team behind Godzilla's digital effects. We had the pleasure of seeing that movie in theaters, and it absolutely floored me how good the King of Monsters looked.
Since the days of Lon Chaney and Jack Pierce, special effects makeup has been integral to horror movies. As the decades went on, practical effects continued to evolve, using puppetry and prosthetics, and nowadays it is mind-blowing how many things you can accomplish with real-life effects, including, in some cases, blowing up mines.
Whether it's depicting inventive new kills or bringing animatronics and killer robots to life, practical effects remain my favorite thing to see in horror. To present the award for Best Practical Effects, we have a modern makeup magician. She's worked on huge budget films like Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom and The Predator, as well as high-quality fan films like Dylan's New Nightmare and Never Hike in the Snow. She also won Season 9 of Face Off, makeup artist Nora Hewitt.
Hey, thanks, James and Chelsea. In an industry that always wants things cheaper and faster, I'm glad to know that practical effects is always going to find its home in the horror genre. Whether it's a full-fledged monster or just good old-fashioned blood and guts, analog effects are a magic trick that wows the audience. This year's nominees include outstanding gore, diseases, creatures, and killer robots. The nominees for Best Practical Effects are Five Nights at Freddy's,
Bringing Five Nights at Freddy's iconic robot band to life was always going to be a priority for this film, which is why director Emma Tammy and series creator Scott Cawthon guided their creation to make them feel ripped straight out of the games. Jim Henson's Creature Shop, under supervision of lead designer Robert Bennett, worked from original video game files to produce both fully animatronic characters and wearable suits, with animatronic heads that could be disassembled as needed for close-ups.
There's a real symbiotic relationship that goes on between the person in the suit and the puppeteer that's working the eyes and the ears and the mouth.
The only exception was Foxy, whose design was too dilapidated to house a performer. Instead, fully animatronic and puppet versions were made, the latter requiring 6 puppeteers to operate.
The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Director Andre Øvredal wanted to give the most famous vampire in history a makeover.
I wanted our Dracula to feel different, more animalistic, more feral, like an addict.
Starting with Nosferatu as an inspiration, Göran Lundström of FX Studios designed 3 looks for Dracula: one bat-like, one man-like, and a wolf-like version, which was ultimately unused. To create a Dracula that stood out amongst the countless interpretations, Lundström puzzled together elements that don't typically mesh, such as the permanent smile, lack of eyelids, and bat-like features. Famed creature performer Javier Botet spent 5 hours in the makeup chair every morning to undergo the transformation. The crew's work earned the film a place on the shortlist for the Academy Awards for Best Makeup and Hairstyling, though they didn't ultimately earn a nomination. We're happy to fix that oversight today.
Megan.
Despite its high-tech story, Megan's filmmakers relied on old-school techniques, like hiding puppeteers instead of digitally erasing them.
In every shot where there is the Megan puppet, I'm actually either below frame or directly behind her. You can't see me, but I'm actually there with the puppet. There is no full CGI version of Megan in the movie.
Megan was designed by Moro FX Studios, with Kathy C. overseeing the look and Adrian Moro handling fabrication, assisted by the esteemed Weta Workshop. On set, the married couple helped operate Megan's animatronic face, which had 3 different remote controls to individually move her eyebrows, eyes, eyelids, jaw, and lips. Multiple versions of Megan were crafted for various purposes, like a waist-up animatronic, a posable dummy, and a full-body stunt double. Key makeup artist Steph Knight provided the gore, like a prosthetic cheek that gave way to a gory second later, or fashioning a simple blood tube to spray the actors.
In some ways, you don't need to act, you just react, and it's very realistic.
Saw X.
For the return of John Kramer, production designer Anthony Stabley based the traps on the simpler designs of the first 2 films, wanting them to seem like things the engineer character could actually build on his own. Stabley then built the traps on location with a local Mexico City crew.
Once you get into a trap, you're dealing with special effects, prosthetics, VFX, production design, lighting ultimately, and cinematography, and all of those elements have to come together.
As for the victims, Fractured FX fabricated all the prosthetics, from fake limbs to entire bodies, striving for accuracy with anatomically correct organs inside. The results were so convincing even director Kevin Greutert can't always tell the difference in the finished film.
So that leg is fake.
Thanksgiving.
Practical effects were so fundamental to Thanksgiving that director Eli Roth had group meetings with the production design, effects, costume, hair, makeup, and art departments specifically to plan the kills. To create the various bodies and their parts, makeup effects designer Adrian Moreau, makeup effects producer Kathy C., and prosthetic makeup designer Steve Newbern worked from 3D scans of the actors.
We're able to do different expressions and try out different things where, like, if you're doing a live cast, it really takes like doing the head takes like 40 minutes just for one expression.
This allowed them to test and fine-tune different facial expressions before 3D printing a mold from which the final sculpt would be cast. Moreau and C's work is also nominated in this same category for Megan.
When Evil Lurks.
For When Evil Lurks, director Demian Rugna reunited with special effects artist Marcos Berta after working with him in 2017's Terrified. Rugna estimates that 80% of the film's effects are entirely practical, from prosthetic bodies to puppeteered goats.
To conceive that, it's a lot of work in the previous. A lot of work to make the puppets,
make two realistic puppets.
Since the film features multiple child deaths, full-body prosthetics were made to avoid having the underage actors on set for violent scenes. For the swollen rotten character who kicks off the possession pandemic, Berta designed an oversized puppet that required 4 performers controlling it from the inside. They moved him with pipes while simultaneously pumping out liquids to create his decaying appearance.
And the prime rib for best practical effects goes to When Evil Lurks. Congratulations to the crew of When Evil Lurks for providing us with the kind of mayhem we truly have never seen.
Congratulations to When Evil Lurks. This was one of our closest categories in terms of votes, but in the end, Evil won out this time.
If you're someone who hates spoilers, award shows are probably pretty tough to watch. We're showing you highlights from so many great films, and the next category is no different. It's time to celebrate the best kills of the past year, so be forewarned. It will spoil some seriously awesome moments for the movies listed on screen right now. You've been warned.
To present the award for Best Kill, we have an actress whose character suffered one of the most infamous kills in the history of the genre. She also produces and co-hosts the Scream Dreams podcast, which I am lucky enough to be a part of. From Terrifier and plenty of other films, our dear friend, Catherine Corcoran.
Thanks, James and Chelsea. In a genre built on maniacs, murderers, and machete enthusiasts, killers are only as good as their kills. I should know. At their best, kills are celebrations of life, showing off all the interlocking crafts and talents that make them believably grisly. From writing and cinematography to makeup and acting, this year's nominated deaths are an especially lively bunch. The nominees for Best Kill are Max in Five Nights at Freddy's.
It only takes one day at Freddy's for babysitter Maxine to meet her end when she gets chomped in half by the titular bear in what fans might call the bite of 23. During auditions, actress Kat Connor Sterling was given a far less gruesome death for her character. That changed during production, and she became a fan of the final product, even when it was nerve-wracking to come face-to-face with the 8-foot-tall Fazbear.
So we used one head for me, and then we used the actual big Freddy. And so I found that very unsettling.
For the actual bite, stunt double Taryn Terrell was lifted by wires and had her top half digitally erased. It's a surprisingly and refreshingly graphic kill for a PG-13 horror film with a young target audience.
Trish in Kids vs. Aliens.
Kids vs. Aliens has a plot that's spelled out in its title, and coming from director Jason Eisner, who created Treevenge and Hobo with a Shotgun, you know that some kids and/or aliens will be meeting some messy ends. The aliens in this film have run out of gas and need human flesh to fuel their ride home. Enter the Slime Throne. Co-writer John Davies based the design on director Jason Eisner's love of 80s action figure playsets.
Jason came over when we were designing it. He brought his own slime pit over, which we really pulled a lot of reference from.
The team had only 2 days to film on the Slime Throne set, so when it came to Trish's death, time was of the essence for both actress Emma Vickers and her stunt double Lily Michaud. It took 6 hours to apply a skull prosthetic to Michaud, which was designed by sculptor Anthony Viu and painted by key makeup artist Kyla Nicole. The face piece left her unable to see for the duration of the shoot.
We okay?
I'm good.
Another girl?
Valentina in Saw X.
John Kramer's return to playing games kicks into high gear with his trap for fake nurse Valentina. She must sever her leg and deposit enough bone marrow in 3 minutes to avoid being decapitated. She obviously fails. It's a trap so violent, director Kevin Greiter assumed they couldn't show all the footage they shot.
As it turns out, we're able to use all the shots that we did. I don't know what the MPA was thinking, but I'll take it.
The kill took 3 days to shoot, switching between different stages of effects. It began with actress Paulette Hernandez working a real Gigli saw against a pad underneath her thigh. Continued with Hernandez's real leg hiding in a hole, while she cut into a prosthetic leg, which was built by Fractured Effects to drip blood and marrow, and ended with a full prosthetic body that fell apart on cue, with monofilament guiding the individual pieces to their marks. It's a kill made memorable by the extensive prosthetics and Hernandez's energetic performance.
Ephraim Waite inside Asa Waite's body in suitable flesh.
A body-hopping antagonist can be difficult to kill, but heroine Elizabeth Derby slows him down at least by pulverizing one of his host bodies. She does so using her car in a concept director Joe Lynch had been sitting on since 2007, which he dubs the Smashining.
The Smashining part was something that I had in my back pocket for 15 years. I've wanted to do that since I owned a Prius.
Due to budget constraints, actress Heather Graham did the driving herself, while Lynch shouted directions on when to back up, stop, and go forward. They pushed the car so hard that on the fourth take, it broke the camera. The dashboard footage was filmed separately with a GoPro and features the makeup work of Anomaly Effects, under the supervision of Greg McDougall.
Kathleen in Thanksgiving.
There's a lot for gorehounds to be thankful for in Eli Roth's Thanksgiving, but the most thematic kill of the movie comes when stepmother Kathleen is basted and roasted alive in her own oven, then later served as the main course at a vengeful dinner. To accomplish the kill, actress Karen Cleesh was temporarily sealed inside the oven prop, inspiring a performance that scared some of the crew off set.
All the doors were closed all around me, so thank God I wasn't claustrophobic. Right? Because it was real. So in that sense, I was able to really play off of the terror of being enclosed. I'm not claustrophobic, but sometimes it was closed.
Although prosthetics were applied for the kill, her roasted remains were digitally sculpted based on scans of the actress.
Vicky in When Evil Lurks.
When Evil Lurks has many gruesome moments, but the most shocking is when director Damian Rugna breaks a horror taboo with a possessed dog attacking and killing an unsuspecting young girl. Child actress Lucretia Neron Telezak was kept safe by combining practical effects from Marco Sperta and digital stitching by visual effects artist Andres Borghi.
It's photorealistic, so it has to look like I did nothing there. But everything is actually digitally enhanced.
Rugna insisted on using a dog de Bordeaux in the film to avoid more stereotypically violent dog breeds. But even with training by Fabian Gabelli, he discovered on set that the dog actor was almost too lazy to work with.
And the prime rib for best kill goes to Vicky in When Evil Lurks. Congratulations to the crew of When Evil Lurks for such a shocking kill. It still makes you scream even when you see it coming.
Congratulations to When Evil Lurks for winning Best Kill. Honestly, many of that movie's kills could have been nominated for this award, but we had to go with the one that shocked us the most, for better or worse.
And if you're shocked by any of these winners, well, you can't just blame us this time. As we mentioned in the introduction, this year we put together a panel to determine the winners from the nominees that Chelsea and I chose. Each panelist was given one vote for each category, and whichever nominee got the most votes won. In the one instance of a tie, Chelsea and I served as tiebreakers.
Our panelists come from many corners of the film reviewer world, all of whom have shown a dedication to and understanding of the horror genre. In addition to the two of us, we were joined by
Shirai Bohannon, a playwright and co-host of A Nightmare on Fierce Street and Blurty Massacre podcasts.
BJ Colangelo, a filmmaker and writer-editor at Slash Film.
Prince Jackson, a writer and host of the Nightlight podcast on Bloody Disgusting.
Perry Nemiroff, an esteemed host and moderator and the senior producer at Collider.
Phil Nobile Jr., a writer and the editor-in-chief at Fangoria.
Dolores Quintana, a writer and contributor to many places, including Creepy Kingdom and Fangoria.
Kate Sanchez, a film critic and editor-in-chief at But Why Though?
Julianne Stipidis, a critic and contributor to Bloody Disgusting, Fangoria, and many other outlets.
And Jeffrey Zhang, a writer and the editor and chief critic for Strange Harbors. Rounding out the jury was Dead Meat producer and host Zoran Gavoyich, who you should know from the channel, and Chauncey K. Robinson, a journalist, media critic, and editor at People's World, who wrote and hosts the newest series here on Dead Meat, Production Tales from Hell.
She's been working on it for a long time with our producer, MK Vandenberg, who once again put together this incredible award show. Production Tales from Hell premieres in 1 week on Dead Meat on Sunday, March 10th, and we're excited to share with you a trailer for it right now.
Cast and crew reported strange happenings during filming that felt like dark omens. One woman passed out and broke her jaw while watching. Was it a lie? A hoax to profit off of a real tragedy? There's actually an infamous picture of Kubrick laughing as he stands around the wreckage left by the fire. He had an illogical hatred for the youngest star of the cast and often felt the urge to want to kill the boy. Hey everyone, it's your Twisted Woman here, Chauncey K. Robinson, and welcome to Production Tales from Hell, where we dive into all the fire and brimstone it took to make the horror films we know and love, and in some cases, the darkness that followed after their releases.
Be sure to tune in for Production Tales from Hell to hear Chauncey tell you all sorts of messed up stories about your favorite horror films. And since it was produced by MK, you know it'll be good.
Sometimes a horror movie earns its scares through natural disasters or circumstance, but nothing is more memorable than a good horror villain. Whether it's one with an interesting motive or one who's just utterly terrifying, villains come in many different forms. This year's nominees include a kid, a couple of killers, a demon, an entity, and a paranoid android.
To present the award for Best Villain, we have a man who's been playing them for decades. He has the ability to be terrifying and hilarious at the same time, whether he's leading the Firefly family or proclaiming that music is his life. He's a veteran of the genre and once played our boss in a music video, Mr. Bill Moseley.
Thanks, James and Chelsea, or should I say Officers Dunbar and Ophelia. You know, it takes a lot to make a great horror villain. Killer script, committed performance, the latest in slasher fashions, and tools of the trade. I prefer the chainsaw and the claw hammer. When all those ingredients come together, a great villain can take a life of their own, even if they don't have one to begin with, like some of our nominees. The nominees for Best Villain are Eden from Children of the Corn.
This prequel to the original film and Stephen King's short story reveals the first spokesperson for He Who Walks Behind the Rose. It's a fiery 11-year-old named Eden Edwards who rebels against the town's adults, including her adoptive father, the pastor. Eden was played by actual 11-year-old Kate Moyer, who got so into character that writer-director Kurt Wimmer changed the script to match her performance.
He would rewrite the character the way that I played it. So it was more me than it was like written on the page.
In order to find righteousness in her revenge, Moyer played Eden as an environmental activist.
Deadite Ellie from Evil Dead Rise.
The lead Deadite of Evil Dead Rise quickly became the film's most talked about asset, so it's no surprise that this maternal take on the damned was what won writer-director Lee Cronin the job in the first place.
I knew we needed a really great big bad in the story. And that was the kind of idea of taking the mother, maybe the obviously most secure person within the story, and then subverting her.
Creating the look of the possessed Ellie took 2.5 hours of makeup every morning from designer Luke Pulte. And for the later scenes when she merges into the Marauder, 70 pounds of prosthetics were required. Between the prosthetics and the wire work, the performance was an endurance test for actress Alyssa Sutherland. But it paid off. The result is a Deadite unlike any we've ever seen before.
CW from Influencer.
In a world of stolen identities and deepfakes created with the help of AI, CW proves herself to be a terrifyingly modern villain, using technology to live out a life of luxury that isn't her own. Co-writers Curtis David Harder and Tesh Gutikonda wanted the killer's background kept a mystery, so they encouraged actress Cassandra No to come up with her own secret history for the character. No plays the manipulator expertly, able to switch between being a warm friend, a naive fan, and a ruthless killer whenever the situation calls for it. The actress also had to learn new skills and overcome fears to convincingly portray the very physical character.
The biggest thing for me was CW's physicality. I had never driven a motorcycle before, and there are a lot of motorcycle tracks. I had a fear of swimming.
Megan from Megan.
Having previous experience with horror dolls in Saw and Dead Silence, Megan producer James Wan sought to outdo his previous work and make the killer doll to end all killer dolls. The clingy, cutting-edge robot's physicality was based on the calculated movements of Bruce Lee and provided by 11-year-old New Zealand dance champion Amy Donald. Donald performed all her own stunts while wearing a mask for long hours that severely limited her visibility.
We've got hand signals. This means I'm really good.
And this is get me out of the mask. I can't handle it anymore.
For everything Donald couldn't do, Megan was realized prosthetically by Moreau FX Studios and digitally by Finn Design and Effects. Actress and internet personality Jenna Davis voiced the robot, completing the collaboration that gave horror its latest icon.
The entity from Skinamarink.
Writer-director Kyle Edward Ball based the omnipotent and nameless entity in Skinamarink on common threads he noticed in viewer submissions in his YouTube channel, Bite-Sized Nightmares.
I'm a little kid, I'm in my house, and my parents are missing, and there's a monster.
He made the haunting personal by using the same public domain cartoons he watched on a tape as a child and voicing it himself. Without revealing anything more than a blurry face in the dark, the entity managed to embody the monster under all of our beds and brand Skinamarink with its singular sense of dread.
And John Carver from Thanksgiving.
Co-writer and director Eli Roth has been daydreaming about stuffing a turkey with terror since he was a little boy.
And then we're at the parade watching the turkey guy walk around, and I thought, if you chopped his head off, would he run around like a turkey with his head cut off? So these are my thoughts when I'm like a kid growing up in Massachusetts.
The idea for the movie's Killer Pilgrim was introduced in 2007 in a fake trailer for the movie Grindhouse. But it wasn't until this feature that he was deemed John Carver, a perfect slasher name that Roth and co-writer Jeff Rendell borrowed from Plymouth Colony's actual first governor. They even based the killer's mask on a rare drawing of Carver from the 1620s. Depending on the demands of the scene, Carver was played by stunt performers Alex Armbruster, Jeff Meach, and Thomas Lorber, or actors Milo Manheim and Patrick Dempsey. He was voiced by Adam McDonald.
Prime rib for best villain goes to Megan! Congratulations to Megan, from one metalhead to another, for keeping a whole new generation up at night. Way to go, girl.
Congratulations to Megan for her win for Best Villain. The character became iconic before the movie was even released, and thankfully she lived up to the high expectations. We can't wait for the sequel.
When it comes to playing a character in a horror movie, of course, it's always nice to be top billed. But the supporting cast is just as important, filling in as comic relief or as the compelling villain. They may not be the first on the call sheet, but they're often the first person you talk about when you leave the theater.
To present the award for Best Supporting Actor, we have someone whose career has been on fire lately. He's the lead sometimes, sure, but he also stands out even when he's one of many award-winning actors in a cast. Although that could be because of the bongos. He's an incredible guy, and he was our co-star in a Christmassy 5-second film, the one and only Jack Quaid.
James, Chelsea, how are you? Jack Quaid here. Thank you so much for having me. Really quick before I get started, which of these two paint swatches should I go with for this wall? The nominees are light green and dark green. Thank you very much. Sound off in the chat. Obviously, the horror genre has been home to many memorable supporting performances. I mean, after all, every slasher needs its potential victims and its potential killers. This year's nominees gave performances that were scary, funny, and frequently possessed. So without further ado, the nominees for Best Performer in a Supporting Role are Joe Bird as Riley in Talk to Me.
Due to pandemic delays, there were 2 years between Joe Bird's first audition at the age of 12 and his second at the age of 14. In fact, by the time he was cast, he looked so different the filmmakers didn't recognize him from his first submission.
I love you both, baby. I love you too, Mom. I'm so proud of you.
Bird drew from his relationship with his own sister to play Riley as the awkward little brother desperate to fit in. With some encouragement from directors Danny and Michael Filippo, he even did his own supernatural stunts.
Michael would do the stunts with me. He's like, oh, if I can do it, then smashes his head, and I'm like, okay, then I'll do it.
Grace Byers as Allison in The Blackening.
Despite receiving horror scripts in the past, Grace Byers had always been hesitant about working in the genre. She changed her mind for The Blackening after seeing how it confronted horror's stereotypical treatment of Black characters, as well as broader genre cliches.
I know we've all had the experience where we're sitting now, we're watching, we're like, don't go in there, girl! What you doing? Oh my God! And so all of that is actually on the page.
The movie's action scenes proved to be a learning curve for her, since the constant adrenaline drained her energy. But Byers was entirely comfortable in the comedic moments, improvising many lines and jokes with encouragement from from director Tim Story.
This is not my white half talking non-D. This is me talking as a whole-ass Black person who just so happens to be biracial.
Kyle Gallner as Benson in The Passenger.
During production, Kyle Gallner and co-star Johnny Birchtold formed a brotherly trust and agreed to push each other as far as the roles required.
I was always grabbing him and throwing him and tossing him around.
I was just
and,
like constantly coming in the next day being like,
Bruised.
oh, look what you did this time. Yeah. Hey, look at this one here.
I
It's
know,
like my little
but
souvenir, my Kyle Gallner souvenirs.
To maintain the explosive pitch of Benson, a coworker turned killer, Gallner would walk off set between takes, listening to intense music and screaming.
You are 20 years old, and you are already more pathetic than every person in this godforsaken town, and that bugs the living shit out of me.
Marin Ireland as Rose in Birth Rebirth.
To play an overwhelmed, modern-day Frankenstein who pursues science with an alarming emotional detachment, Marin Ireland worked with medical consultant Emily Ryan to learn the finer points of playing a doctor.
Should I be writing something down, Emily? Like, I don't know what people do. Would I be typing it? Would I write? She goes like, well, what you're doing, I would just be making like hash marks. And I was like, I can totally do that convincingly.
Ireland found interest in playing a character who uses their own reproductive organs as a tool, and trusted her director Laura Moss and co-star Judy Reyes as they navigated controversial subject matter and an often dark tone.
When I was 6, we went to Orchard Beach and we found a starfish. Apparently, I was very taken with it, so we brought it back home. She laid it out on butcher paper, and she told me to cut off its arm.
Judah Lewis as Asa Waite in Suitable Flesh.
To play Asa Waite and the various souls who hop into and out of his body, Judah Lewis developed each possession as an individual character.
My mind was in your body.
Well, I guess if anybody ever tells you to go fuck yourself, you can tell them you have.
He based his switching between them on American Werewolf in London at director Joe Lynch's request. But unlike that movie's transformations, Lewis required no prosthetic assistance.
Watching the veins in both Heather's and Judah's necks when they would change, it was all the Cronenbergian body horror that we needed to capture on camera without even a makeup effects artist, because they were so committed to make it feel like this hurt.
And Alyssa Sutherland as Ellie in Evil Dead Rise.
After the loving mother becomes a Kandarian demon, the character of Ellie takes on the same dark sense of humor as previous Deadites in the franchise. Alyssa Sutherland, however, brought a unique bite and physicality to the performance, taking ingenious inspiration from an unlikely source.
I watched The Mask, Jim Carrey and The Mask. I sort of added a little sort of hilarity and joy and like a celebration of just carnage.
Although not a horror fan, the former model embraced the character's unnatural movements by studying interpretive dances and practicing them in her hotel room during quarantine.
Open up and let us in, Cassie. We can be a big, happy family again.
You don't look so good, Mom.
Nothing a big old hug and kiss from you won't fix. Open up now.
And the prime rib for Best Performer in a Supporting Role goes to... You said make it my own. Alyssa Sutherland for her performance in Evil Dead Rise. Alyssa, congratulations. You were wonderful in bringing Ellie to life and undeath, if that's even a term. Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your night. Congratulations, Alyssa.
Congratulations to Alyssa Sutherland, who completely transformed herself as a Deadite in Evil Dead Rise. Her performance alone makes the film unforgettable.
As much fun as playing support is, there's no greater pressure than being the lead in a film. You become the face of the project. If it's good, you might win praise, but if it's not well received, you might unfairly get the blame. It's a risky role to accept, but a great leading performance can make a movie worth watching all by itself.
To present the award for Best Lead Actor, we have a man who not only acts, but hosts, writes, does comedy, and is just a cool guy. He's a true blue horror fan and plays the lead role in the just-released Shudder film, Destroy All Neighbors. Our friend, Jonah Ray Rodriguez.
Thanks, James and Chelsea.
Center stage is a tough place to be in a horror film. Whether you're in constant danger or the one doing the constant endangering, your performance sets the tone and the terror for the entire film. Even the scariest monsters can come off cute and cuddly if we didn't believe that our hero was truly afraid of them. And so this year's nominees gave us plenty of fear to believe in. So here are the nominees for Best Lead Actor. Melissa Barrera as Samantha Carpenter in Scream 6.
When she signed on for 2022's Scream, Melissa Barrera hoped to expand on the character of Sam Carpenter in sequels, and even presented her ideas to the filmmakers while Part 6 was being written.
It wasn't just like the tough girl, the protective older sister that like has all these walls up. I was like, what happens when those walls break down? And we didn't get a chance to see that in the fifth one.
In this second outing for Sam Carpenter, Barrera brings nuance and complexity to the final girl, exploring a woman haunted by the traumas of the previous film and her own familial ties.
It's not your fault. And I know I shouldn't care what people think. It just sucks being this hated.
Tobin Bell as John Kramer in Saw X.
19 years and 9 films since the original Saw was released, Tobin Bell found unexpected depths to the character that made him a horror icon.
John's a magician in a certain way. Sometimes what you see is not what you get with him.
Bell reasserts John Kramer as a desperate man running out of time, extracting previously unseen hope, fear, and humanity from one of the most infamous killers in the genre. With a career-best performance at age 80, Bell finally shows us a Jigsaw who is more than just the self-righteous game master we've come to know.
The reality is, I'm dying. I am dying. You have to face that, but our work's not gonna end.
Caitlin Dever as Bryn in No One Will Save You.
Bryn is a character ostracized from her small town, so she has no one to turn to when she's suddenly faced with an alien invasion. Director Brian Duffield was impressed by how well Caitlin Dever handled the role's physical demands.
Because she's also not like method, like it's like she'll be like screaming, crying, doing whatever, and then you call cut and she's just like dancing around, and it's just such a superpower.
Despite not being known for action roles, Dever fully threw herself into the film's required stunts. She was given permission to mutter words in the otherwise wordless film, but she never did, instead selling the drama by facial expression alone.
Ryunosuke Kamiki as Koichi Shikishima in Godzilla -1.
When Ryunosuke Kamiki was first cast as Shikishima, he had never seen a single Godzilla film.
まだまだゴジラに関しては新人なので、皆様が、ゴジラファンの皆様がですね、僕たちのことを引っ張っていって、いただけたら嬉しいなと思っております。ぜひ。
To get a sense of his co-star scale, he wrote Godzilla the Ride, Giant Monsters Ultimate Battle, which was also written and directed by -1's Takashi Yamazaki. To explore the human side of his character and his traumatic past as a kamikaze pilot, Kamiki studied the lives of war veterans and tried to carry their survivor's guilt with him in his daily life during production.
Natalia Soleon as Valeria in Huersa, the Bone Woman.
Although unfamiliar with the legend of Huseras, Natalia Soleon was drawn to the title's metaphorical reference to Huseros, holistic bone setters of ancient Mayan tradition that she compared to chiropractors.
The popular thing is that you are going to be healthy if you are like in the correct place.
Soleon focused on what she called the physical design of her character, developing her movement and physicality to help tell Valeria's story.
Abrí y no había nadie. Luego bajé para ver si había alguien. Me cerraron la puerta. Tranquila aquí. ¿Me estás oyendo aquí?
¿Ves a alguien aquí? Mira. Está, mira. Fíjate. Dejaste la ventana abierta. Fue el aire.
And Sophie Wilde as Mia in Talk to Me.
Directors Danny and Michael Filippo were so impressed by Sophie Wilde's audition that they sacrificed $1 million from the budget to cast the unknown actress as their lead. Wilde was the first cast member to act out her character's possession, and the directors gave her free rein to play it however she liked.
She would give us so many different variations, to the point where she said she felt like she'd lost her mind, and she was just riffing and talking.
The resulting performance was so powerful, the rest of the cast based their own possessions on hers.
I have this recurring nightmare. Oh, I'm looking in the mirror, but my reflection is gone. Like I don't exist.
And the prime rib for Best Lead Actor goes to Natalia Silione for her performance in Huersa, The Bone Woman. Congratulations to Natalia for her heartbreaking performance in the face of a bone-breaking ghost.
Congratulations to Natalia Silione for an emotional performance that made the metaphorical literally terrifying. No matter how many horror movies you watch, it never makes it easier when you lose someone in real life. And that was made clear to me this past year. In addition to my personal loss, we sadly said goodbye to many people who contributed their talents to the genre. From actors to filmmakers to poster designers, each of them spent at least some of their time on this earth contributing to the movies we love. They will forever be a part of us in that way, and they will forever be missed.
Here is our In Memoriam for those we lost over the past year.
We are experiencing some kind of disaster. I don't know whether it's man-made or natural, but I do know that it's definitely not supernatural.
Now there's something you don't see every day. I'll be darned.
We're immortal, Buffy. You can do anything.
I am the color red in a world full of black and white. I, Bray Wyatt, am forever.
Tis I who others fear.
You son of a bitch. okay. I did know when to quit, huh? Damn good to see you, Dutch.
We lost a lot of good people this year, but we'll always remember them and the joy they brought to us, each in their own special way.
As we just saw from the various credits in that montage, it takes a ton of people to make a movie. But the person most associated with a movie's quality, for better or worse, is the captain of the set, the director.
A director works with every department to achieve their vision for a film, especially the cinematographer to make sure everything looks just right, and the actors to make sure their performances all fit the tone of the project. A good director will leave a movie feeling coherent and satisfying.
To present the award for Best Director, we have a man who started his career as a cinematographer for music videos and the legendary Spike Lee. Eventually, he began directing his own films, including the harrowing Juice and the horror films Demon Knight and Bones, as well as dozens of TV episodes on Dexter, The Walking Dead, and The Wire. We are honored to have him, the immensely talented Ernest Dickerson.
Thank you, James and Chelsea. You know, any set can turn into a horror movie without a strong vision and a steady hand to keep the cast and crew united. Directing is demanding work even on the best of days. And it is a testament to this year's nominees that they kept the nightmares and the horrors on screen and off the set. And so, the nominees for Best Director are Michelle Garza-Severa for Huesera, the Bone Woman.
While Huesera is full of bone-crunching horror to propel its story, Michelle Garza-Severa paid equal attention to the more mundane fear at the film's core: domestication, and all the demands it places on women like protagonist Valeria.
It's like, okay, we exist. These kind of women exist. Let's talk about them, because if we try to hide these aspects, we're like bringing something very violent into these kind of characters in our realities.
Cervera and DP Noor Rubio Sherwell created a visual language to express the confinement of Valeria's domestic world. It was colorful and harmonious, but at the same time terrifying, contrasting with the punk world from her past, which was full of dark colors and freedom. As Valeria becomes entangled in the Bone Woman's web, the director used lighting, production design, and costuming to construct the sense of a spider web slowly ensnaring her.
Lee Cronin for Evil Dead Rise.
When creating Evil Dead Rise, Lee Cronin sought to bring a new element to the beloved series: heart. To do that, he created a family as its central characters, but made sure not to sacrifice the franchise's trademark chaotic violence.
To me, it was the energy, the scare factor, and the entertainment, and that was the thing I wanted to carry to Evil Dead Rise.
Cronin tried to keep the movie playful by showcasing the blood and gore in a way that didn't feel too grim and never lingering on suffering for too long. He worked with DP Dave Garbett to use camera tricks like split diopter shots, which allowed him to avoid cutaways without sacrificing important details, resulting in scenes that constantly kept the energy moving.
Brian Duffield for No One Will Save You.
With a movie that features only 5 words of spoken dialogue, getting the right performance out of his lead was key for Brian Duffield. He credits Caitlin Dever for the success, but he was still responsible for making sure the audience felt side by side with her wordless character Bryn throughout the action of the film.
I'm figuring out how to make it relentless, that you were really holding Caitlin's hand in the movie and not just watching this thing bounce around on screen.
Developing the movie's grays was more complex. With a limited budget, Duffield had to carefully choose when and how to show the aliens, while at the same time giving enough detail to make the creatures feel intelligent and unique. This required careful attention to their movement, starting with 2 days of mocap work that, while never used for actual animation, allowed the director and VFX artists to experiment with ideas quickly. With this, they were able to bring a new depth to the classic extraterrestrial design.
Gerard Johnston for Megan.
Directing the first breakout horror movie of 2023 was a surprisingly personal experience for Gerard Johnstone, who had recently become a new father.
Watching how we were so easily just relying on devices to occupy our kids' time or to educate them, it was really, that to me was horrific.
It's part of the reason Johnstone, who considers himself more a director of comedy than horror, wanted to bring his comedic edge to the project. Creating the film's campy tone required him to carefully guide every performance, including the team of people portraying Megan herself, her designers, puppeteers, actress, and voice actress. Johnstone threaded the needle of comedy and horror and shaped Megan into the viral sensation it became.
Danny and Michael Filippo for Talk to Me.
With Talk to Me, brothers Danny and Michael Filippo built on a decade of experience from their popular YouTube channel Raka Raka to tell a distinctly modern ghost story.
We were trying to make a film that's like current, and what would happen if there's like a horror scenario in today's setting with phones and social media.
Using a ceramic hand, they crafted a cautionary tale about craving connection in a world that is hyper online but emotionally isolating. The first-time feature directors worked with an Australian cast of mostly unknown young actors and kept their teenage characters authentically messy as they experimented with spiritual possession.
And Demian Rugna for When Evil Lurks.
To create a movie about pure, unchecked evil, Demian Rugna wanted to break as many horror rules as possible. But with a script calling for extreme violence, animal choreography, and child actors, it was sometimes difficult to film what was on the page while adhering to Argentina's child labor laws.
They didn't allow us to work with the kids, with blood, with guns, with violent elements, with a dog.
It took constant ingenuity to keep the script alive, including camera tricks, doubles, and even the use of blue paint instead of blood, which was changed to a bloody crimson in post. In the end, everyone won. The child actors had fun with their dead prosthetic doubles, and Rugna turned out one of the year's most relentlessly horrifying films.
So, the prime rib for the best director goes to Demian Rugna for When Evil Lurks. Congratulations, Demian, and thank you for truly making us feel like no one and nothing is safe. Thank you so much for that.
Congratulations to Demian Rugna for putting together When Evil Lurks. He's made plenty of features before, but this feels like a breakout film, and I'm excited to see what he has in store for us next.
We knew last year that we wanted to find a different way to pick winners, and as mentioned, we settled on a jury of film critics. That way, it wasn't just the two of us picking our favorites, but it still avoided turning every category into a popularity contest. But you know what? Popularity contests do have their purposes, like finding out what you, the viewer, likes.
Just as we did last year, we put out a poll on social media and received 23,000 votes to determine this year's fan favorite award. To announce the winner, we've got the third host of Dead Meat. He's the channel's fun uncle and defender of all things graboids and krites. Our wonderful friend and the man behind They Talk, Zoran Gavoich.
For all the fluids that get spilled on screen, it's the fans that are the true lifeblood of horror. They keep that black heart beating. And despite all the esteemed opinions collected for these awards, it's your collective vote that matters most. You're the ones that show up, buy a ticket, or borrow your parents' streaming password, and keep this genre going. And boy, did you show up for this one. So many votes were cast in order to determine this winner. And so I'm happy to announce the prime rib for fan favorite film goes to Talk to Me. Congratulations to Talk to Me. The cast and crew have earned a big hand. I'm not touching that thing.
Congratulations to Talk to Me. I'm so glad this movie resonated with horror fans so much. We're proud of the Filippos for catapulting themselves from YouTube content creators to fully fledged filmmakers. And who knows, maybe we'll join them one day.
Long franchises can be found all over the film industry today, but I think it's safe to say the horror genre had the first claim. Universal Monsters saw early remakes and shared cinematic universes, and the slashers of the 80s were well known for their seemingly endless sequels. When horror fans like something, they want movie after movie featuring the same characters or killers. Even when the quality doesn't hold up throughout the series, it's nice to have something familiar and comfortable.
To present the award for Best Remake or Sequel, we have a man who has produced more sequels than I could ever even hope to count. And counting is literally my job. His production company has many long-running franchises, like Subspecies with 6 films, Evil Bong with 9, or Puppet Master with, no joke, 15. From Full Moon Features B-movie veteran, Charles Band.
Thank you, James and Chelsea. Remakes and sequels return horror to its simplest form, as scary stories told around the campfire. If they terrify us enough, new storytellers will continue to carry on their tradition with fresh voices and further chapters. This year's nominees reimagine vastly different legacies in ways equally satisfying and surprising. The nominees for the best remake or sequel are Evil Dead Rise,
The fifth installment in the franchise, Evil Dead Rise, is an American film that binds the previous films together by books of the dead, unleashing the latest volume on a single mother, her 3 kids, and their estranged aunt in a crumbling Los Angeles apartment complex.
Mom? Mommy's with the maggots now.
The film was written and directed by Lee Cronin. It was produced by Rob Tappert and executive produced by Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, all founding members of the franchise.
Please. Help me, Betty Boo. Only my sister gets to call me that.
Godzilla -1.
The 33rd installment in the original kaiju franchise, Godzilla -1 is a Japanese film that celebrates the character's 70th anniversary by taking the series back to basics with a reimagining of the first attack. The film was written and directed by Takashi Yamazaki, who previously worked with the King of Monsters in Always, Sunset on 3rd Street 2, and the theme park attraction Godzilla the Ride, Giant Monsters Ultimate Battle. It was produced by Minami Ichikawa of Toho Studios and Shuji Abe of Robot Communications.
Hell House LLC Origins, The Carmichael Manor.
The 4th installment in the found footage franchise, Hell House LLC Origins The Carmichael Manor, is an American film that sheds shocking light on past haunts through a seemingly unrelated tragedy.
What's on their video is 4 nights of completely perplexing and unexplainable nights of footage. Whoever sees this, that's the best disclaimer I can give.
The film was written and directed by Stephen Cognetti and produced by Joe Bandelli, both of whom have overseen the franchise since the first film.
So where you're losing me is you mock all these places that we go to because, oh, they might be haunted, but then when a place actually might be, you want to leave?
Saw 10.
A so-called interquel that takes place between Saw and Saw 2, Saw X is an American film that resurrects John Kramer as a victim who falls prey to a fraudulent miracle treatment for his cancer in Mexico.
All of you promised dying people. Dying people! You could save their lives.
The film was directed by 7-time franchise editor and 3-time director Kevin Greutert and written by 3-time writing team Peter Goldfinger and Josh Stolberg. It was produced by Mark Berg and Oren Kulis, who have overseen the franchise since the original Saw.
I'm not ready to do this without you.
You are ready. You are ready, and you can.
Scream 6.
The 6th installment in the slasher franchise, Scream 6 is an American film that picks up a year after the last massacre as the Core 4 face freshman year and another ghost-faced killer, this time in New York City.
I've been investigating their online activity for the past few months.
What?
They take a special interest in ghost face attacks.
The film is directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette of Radio Silence, and written by returning collaborators James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick. Vanderbilt also produced the film alongside William Sherrick and Paul Neinstein.
Maybe it's time someone made a buck reporting your death.
You know you're like the 10th guy to try this, right? And spoiler alert, it never works out for the dipshit in the mask.
And Thanksgiving.
The feature-length expansion of a fake trailer from 2007's Grindhouse, Thanksgiving is an American film that gives the titular holiday its own slasher icon as a masked pilgrim known as John Carver enacts violent revenge for a Black Friday tragedy.
It's Thanksgiving! It's an American holiday!
The film was directed by Eli Roth, who directed the original trailer, and written by Jeff Rendell. It was produced by Roth, Rendell, and Roger Birnbaum.
Gather round the table, everyone. Dinner is served.
And the prime rib for the best remake or sequel goes to Godzilla -1. Congratulations to the cast and crew of Godzilla -1 for throwing the King of Monsters the best birthday yet.
Congratulations to Godzilla Minus One for an excellent addition to one of the longest-running film franchises. I think it has 38 movies, so Charlie better start taking notes.
And finally, it's time for the Best Original Film Award. As horror fans, we're so fortunate to have a deluge of original ideas every year. There's something about the genre that allows a filmmaker to unleash their full creativity, whether it's expressed through story, stakes, or structure. The films nominated this year tapped into a wide array of fears, from AI and social media to childhood fears and giving birth.
To present the award for Best Original Film, we have the star of one of last year's biggest horror movies. Although her breakout role was in a sequel, you'll see her in plenty of upcoming original films as her career continues to flourish. From Terrifier 2, actress and stunt performer Lauren Lavera.
I love death. Thanks, James and Chelsea. The beauty of horror is that it will always show us new things to be afraid of and find unexpected ways to scare us. Every year, creative filmmakers work from scratch to create fresh hells for us to endure and enjoy. This year's nominees are all one-of-a-kind bumps in the night. The nominees for Best Original are Huesera, The Bone Woman.
Huesera the Bone Woman is a Mexican and Peruvian co-production about a young woman who faces body horror and an evil spirit during her pregnancy.
Lo que te está pasando es de lo más normal. Cuando una se convierte en mamá, siente que se está partiendo en dos. Y espérate al parto. Literal. Sientes que se te parten los huesos.
The film was directed by Michelle Garza Cervera, making her feature debut, from a script co-written by Cervera and Abia Castillo. It was produced by Paulina Villavicencio and Eder Campos.
Influencer.
Influencer is an American film about a burnt-out vlogger on vacation in Thailand, whose life and career is forever changed after befriending a fellow traveler.
You can come crash with me. I'll show you around.
No, I couldn't put you out.
It's gonna be fine.
The film was directed by Curtis David Harder, from a script written by Harder and Tesh Gudikonda. It was produced by Harder, Gudikonda, Jack Campbell, Brandon Christensen, and Micah Henry.
You feel entitled to thinking that people should follow you, which makes you believe that you're the center of the universe, the star of the story, but no one is.
Megan.
Megan is an American film about a robotic doll equipped with the latest artificial intelligence. She can sing, dance, and do absolutely anything to protect her best friend and 8-year-old owner.
Megan, what are you doing?
Couldn't sleep. Occupational hazard.
The film was directed by Gerard Johnstone and written by Akela Cooper, from a story by Cooper and James Wan, who previously collaborated on *Malignant*. Wan also produced alongside James Blum.
How could you just discard me like some cheap dollar store trinket?
Because you killed people.
Oh, big whoop. Listen, humanity kills every day just to make its own existence more tolerable.
Skinamarink.
Skinamarink is a Canadian film in the vein of analog horror, just as much a lo-fi formal experiment as it is a movie. 2 young children become trapped home alone with an unseen entity in a house with no windows, doors, or consistent laws of physics. The film was written and directed by first-time director Kyle Edward Ball on a budget of just $15,000 and produced by Dylan Pierce.
Talk to Me.
Talk to Me is an Australian film that turns supernatural possession into a party game. But one grieving teen takes things too far when she sees it as a way to reconnect with her dead mother.
As soon as she lets it in, it cannot go for more than 90 seconds. Am I clear?
What happens after 90 seconds?
They want to stay.
The film was directed by brothers Danny and Michael Filippo, founders of the popular YouTube channel Raka Raka. It was written by Danny Filippo and Bill Hinsman, based on a concept from Daley Pearson. It was produced by Samantha Jennings and Christina Seaton.
They like you.
Oh shit, not you there.
When Evil Works.
When Evil Lurks is an Argentinian and American co-production that follows two brothers as they try to quarantine a demonic entity. In the process, they unwittingly cause a pandemic of possession.
Pensé que rezando íbamos a poderle curar. Le hemos prendido su velita al santo.
La iglesia murieron, doña.
The film was written and directed by Damian Rukna as his follow-up to 2017's Terrified. It was produced by Fernando Diaz and Roxana Ramos.
Leo, no usé arma. Ayúdame a encontrar a mi hija, hijo de puta. No usé pólvora, Leo. Es la hermana de tus hijos, basura. Ayúdame a encontrarla. No vas a buscar un perro. Vas a buscar un demonio.
And the prime rib for Best Original Film goes to... Yeah? Yeah, that was gross. I liked it though. When Evil Lurks! Congratulations to the cast and crew of When Evil Lurks for holding nothing back, winning it all, and thank you so much for reminding us how terrifying our furry friends can be.
Congratulations to When Evil Lurks, completing its sweep tonight. It won all 4 categories in which it was nominated. Highly impressive and well-deserved.
Congratulations to all the other winners and nominees as well. Even though we assembled a jury to vote this year, at the end of the day, movie tastes are subjective. You may disagree with our winners or nominees, and that's awesome, because it means there were a lot of great horror movies made last year.
Thank you to Vidiots for allowing us to film in their theater, and once again to our producer MK Vandenberg, who put the show together. Our frequent collaborator James Hall headed the camera department, but there were tons of people who worked on this show, and it wouldn't be possible without all of them.
As always, we want to thank the entire team at Dead Meat, since they keep the channel going, and of course you, the viewer, for tuning in and celebrating these horror films with us.
Now that we've done this 3 times, we've made it a pattern, so tune in next year as we keep it going. Until next time, I'm James A. Janice.
I'm Chelsea Rebecca.
And this has been the Dead Meat Horror Awards. Be good people. Whoa! Who put our address out here? Guys, come on, we can't just have our personal information getting out like that. Just like you don't want your personal information getting out either. But thankfully, our show's sponsor Incogni can help. You see, every day, data brokers are selling lists with your name and personal information, and there's tons of ways they can get that information. Maybe you signed up for a loyalty card, or for a free newsletter, and now that information has been packaged and sold, and you're left dealing with the spam messages. Plus, it can go even further. People you don't know might be able to find your home address and phone number. It's happened to me, and let me tell you, it's not fun. Luckily, all is not lost. Brokers have to take your information off their lists if you request it. But with so many lists, it's a nightmare to find, contact, and keep tabs on them all. I mean, it could take years, but that's where Incogni comes in. When you sign up for their service, you give them permission to take you off broker lists. Once you do, their team gets to work, reaching out to data brokers, requesting your removal, and dealing with any objections. Meanwhile, from the dashboard, you can see every list where your information has been found and track the status of its removal. You can sign up for Incogni by going to incogni.com/deadmeat and use code deadmeat to get 60% off. That's incogni.com/deadmeat and use code deadmeat or click the link below to take your personal data off the market. All right, we're all good here? Good, safe and sound.